Hi, welcome to my Facebook Live again. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I thought for our topic, I would just go back and pick up some frequently asked questions and try to address them. I'm pulling from questions that over the years have just been, I've just had to address kind of over and over again. And and that's fine because this is whether you're buying or selling a home, this is a very complex process. And even people who have done multiple transactions find that they have questions. New first-time home buyers certainly have a lot of questions about how this process is. And also, if you are from outside of North Carolina, you may find that how we do things here in North Carolina are a little bit different than they are back where you came from. So I'm just going to pull a few things. I'm not going to spend like hours talking about all these different questions. I kind of like the idea of maybe doing a frequently asked questions Friday, and maybe doing this every Friday, address a few other questions that come up. So let's do that. My name is Mary Lynn Blake, for those of you who do not know me. And I am a real estate broker with Caldwell Banker Seacoast Advantage in Wilmington, North Carolina. And one of the things I'm going to do real quick here, I meant to share this with my personal page. So if you can just bear with me for half a second while I do that. I may be a little kind of late to do that, but I'm going to try it anyway. See what happens. All right, just a second. Sorry. Share now public. Okay. All right. So back again to what our frequently asked questions are. Now, right now, a lot of the questions that have kind of come in have been more about how the real estate industry is dealing with the coronavirus. And I kind of feel like almost every single time I've been on Facebook Live in the last couple of weeks, I've ended up touching on that. So I'm not really going to focus on that too much today, other than to say that in North Carolina and here in Wilmington, real estate is considered an essential service. So we are still conducting business. People are buying and selling homes right now. We are just doing business in a little bit different way, where we are complying with some of the not meeting in person unless it's absolutely necessary. So we're going to move past that. I'm going to start talking about some of the more generic questions that I have had over the years and focus on those today. So first of all, I have a question here about how long does it take to buy a home? And this is one of those things that's specific to an area where you live. I was just on the phone with a real estate agent from upstate New York the other day, and she was telling me that the process from the time a contract is signed between a buyer and seller to when they go to settlement, or the closing date, that means the same thing, settlement, closing date, pretty much. Up there, it can take, 2, 3, 4 months for that to happen. Here in North Carolina, in the Wilmington area, what is the norm is about 4 to 6 weeks. I have a lender that I like to work with that I'm planning on introducing you to on Monday, who has gotten her closings done in 3 weeks for her buyers and sellers. So we have a much more streamlined process than many other places have. And there may be some other states that it's quicker than we do it here in North Carolina. But that's what's normal here. Now, if you are paying cash, you can very easily get your closing done in just a couple of weeks. You just need to be able to schedule inspections or do different things like that. In that period of time, it can move very quickly. So kind of following on from that is a question that I get sometimes about how many homes should I look at before I can expect to find the house I want? And that also varies a lot, depends on people, on what their expectations are and what the market looks like. But I have had people that have looked at dozens and dozens of homes before they finally made up a mind. And I've had people who looked at 3 houses and said, yep, this is it. We know what we want, and moved very quickly on it. You'll find that when you're in a market that is a seller's market, where their inventory is low, that you don't want to spend too much time dithering about which house to buy because you're going to lose the house. So you have to kind of weigh that a little bit with really getting what you want. But I really think that the most important thing in determining how long you're going to end up looking at homes is whether or not you've set your priorities and have, and if you and a spouse who are involved in buying a home together, then you want to be on the same page. You want to make sure that you have your must-have list that you have clearly communicated to your real estate broker, so he or she can pull together a short list of homes that meet your specifications, and make sure that you have a must-have list, and then you have a wish to have list that you can be more flexible about. But those are the kinds of things, just that will determine how long and how many homes you end up looking at. The next question that comes up a lot from buyers who are a little resistant about this sometimes is, should I talk to a banker or lender before I start looking at homes? And a lot of times that's couched in terms of, why would I need to do that? The answer to that is, you don't absolutely have to talk to a broker or a mortgage broker or your banker before you start looking, but you should. It's a smart thing to do. And if you've got a good real estate agent, he or she will be telling you that. In fact, many real estate agents will not start showing you homes until they know you have talked to a broker, a mortgage broker, your bank or some lender, to determine what you can afford and that you are going to be able to qualify to get a mortgage to buy a home. You may think you're in good shape, but until you've talked to a mortgage broker, you don't know for sure, and certainly a seller and the real estate agent doesn't know for sure. So just kind of, that's the first hurdle you need to get over, is just get your mind set that you are going to need to talk to a mortgage lender first, to so that you're not wasting your time or anybody else's time. No, it is not an absolutely requirement that you do that before you start even looking for a house, but certainly most sellers are going to ask that when you submit an offer for a house, that at that same time you present your pre-qualification letter that you will have gotten from your lender. Okay, so next question. Do I really need a realtor when buying a home? Okay, so let me address this one way. The question I had that came in was realtor, and I want to make a distinction between a real estate agent and a realtor. A realtor belongs to, is a member of, in good standing with the National Association of Realtors, which is called NAR, N-A-R. Only someone who is a member of NAR can call themselves a realtor. And all realtors must adhere to NAR's very strict code of ethics. That's based on professionalism and protection of the public. That's what's behind the whole code of ethics for National Association of Realtors. Some of the basic principles, and I'm just going to read this because it's easier that way. Some of the basic principles of the code of ethics include: protect and promote your client's interests, but be honest with all parties. Avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, and concealment of pertinent facts. So that basically the consumer can expect some honest and ethical treatment from during all transaction-related matters with a realtor. Now, the broader question is, as a buyer, do you have to have a real estate agent or a realtor to buy a house? You do not, but it is highly recommended that you have a professional who is an expert in real estate matters to guide you through this process, which, as I mentioned earlier, is quite complicated. And a real estate agent, a realtor who is working for you, is going to be looking out for your best interests during this transaction and helping you to find a good deal, guiding you through, the process of negotiating for you and all of these things. So I would always tell a buyer, and especially if you're a first-time buyer, that you need to have the representation of a real estate professional and expert on your side during this transaction that could be the biggest financial transaction of your life. Don't go it alone. Don't try to do it. Don't rely on the seller's listing agent to help you through the process. Get your own representation. Now, next question that kind of flows out of this is I get from a lot of buyers who are asking, how much am I going to have to pay for a buyer's agent to help me buy a house? And typically the answer is you don't pay anything. So again, it's kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you get a buyer's agent to represent you? The way it works, at least with my company, we do not charge a success fee to our buyers. Your buyer's agent, as well as the listing agent, get paid by the seller at the closing. So when you sell a house, and only when a house is bought or sold, and only then does your real estate agent get paid. Our real estate agents on either side of the deal get paid. So again, it's kind of a no-brainer for a buyer to get a buyer's agent. Now, I will say that the only time a buyer may find themselves having to pay for the services provided by their real estate agent is if you're buying a for sale by owner home and the owner refuses to pay the buyer's fee for services. And that happens. It's not very often, but it can happen. Usually a for sale by owner buyer, understands that if somebody's bringing them a buyer and helping to process all the paperwork, which most of the time a for sale by owner seller doesn't really understand as well as they should, that it is only right to compensate the buyer's agent. So, okay. Let me see if there's one more I want to do before I end this, before it gets too long. And let's see. Here's one question that's kind of specific to North Carolina. The answer is, anyway, and that is, when can I back out if I change my mind? It's talking about the buyer backing out. And in many areas, there's built into the contract that you've signed a contract with the seller that you're gonna buy this house. A lot of contracts in other states have built-in contingency agreements, like if the financing falls through or if the home inspection isn't good, those types of things that you can back out of the deal and get your earnest money back. Part of the process of buying a home when you sign a contract is that you are agreeing to also give the seller, put into escrow, some earnest money to show the seller that you're serious about buying their home. Now, if something happens however, that you back out of that contract, if it's because of one of those contingencies, you will get your earnest money back. Otherwise, the seller gets to keep that earnest money as compensation for having taken their house off the market while you were going through your process of getting everything set. Now, North Carolina is different. Say all that because North Carolina, we don't really do contingencies. We have something called a due diligence period that kind of acts in the same way, but is a little broader. The due diligence period begins as soon as the contract has been executed, meaning that both the buyer and the seller have signed the agreement, signed the contract, come to an agreement, okay? And it lasts through a specific period of time that both the buyer and seller have agreed upon. That might be 3 weeks, that might be a little bit longer. But what is expected to happen during that due diligence period, of course, is that you're going to do your due diligence. You're going to have all your inspections done. You're going to finalize and secure your financing, and all those things that you need to do to kind of really have the ball, all your balls, and you're juggling in place to go ahead with the closing. Now, if in North Carolina you decide for any reason or no reason, you could just get cold feet, or you could decide that there's something that's come up during the home inspection that you just cannot, accept about the house, and your seller is not agreeing to fix it, and it's not something that you want to deal, whatever the reason is, or your financing falls through. You can back out and still get your earnest money back as long as you do that before the end of the due diligence period. Now, you can extend the due diligence period if that's really necessary, as long as the seller and buyer both agree in writing that they are going to extend it. And some of the reasons why you might extend it is if you're still waiting for results from inspections, or the financing hasn't been secured yet, or there are a number of reasons why you might want to extend your due diligence period, but it has to be something that the seller agrees on. Because if you back out of the deal after the due diligence period, you will forfeit your earnest money to the seller, because that was meant for them to be compensated for pulling their house from the market. Okay, one other piece of that is also we are seeing a lot more of here in North Carolina, because people took a little bit of advantage during when we had the big, bubble before the bubble burst in the finance market in the 2000s. One of the things that happened because we have that due diligence clause is that people were going out and making multiple offers on properties. And then knowing full well they were only going to buy one of those houses, and then at the last minute pulling their contract, getting out of the contract while they waited to see which deal was going to kind of work out for the best for them. And so what that did is create a situation where we had all these sellers who were pulling their houses off the market in good faith when the buyer was not acting in good faith. And so as a result, now we have something called the due diligence fee. And it's not a requirement, you don't have to do it, but a lot of sellers require it. And that is usually a much smaller fee than the earnest money, but it still is just kind of showing the good faith and that you're serious as a buyer. And in that case, if you pull out during the due diligence period, you do lose that smaller due diligence fee. Again, it's compensating the seller for pulling their house off the market. So anyway, I think that's all I'm going to address today. And let me know if you've got anything that you would like to ask. I'm happy to either send you an answer through the direct message, or we can next Friday, maybe I can address those questions here again on our frequently asked Friday questions. Frequently asked questions Friday. That's it. Okay. All right, you all have a great weekend. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thanks.